In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. Welcome to a special compilation episode of Shift and Thrive. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest disruptions to the B2B landscape, how artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing buyer behavior. Traditional outbound sales and gated white papers are breaking down, inboxes are flooded with AI-generated noise, and buyers are using AI search to evaluate vendors before they ever speak to sales. We've compiled the most cutting-edge tactics from our go-to-market experts on how to raise the bar on creativity, leverage AI to do the heavy lifting for your prospects, and cut through the noise in today's chaotic market. Let's jump right in. First up is Kerry Cunningham, who joins us to dismantle the blank slate fallacy and reveal how modern buyers are actually using LLMs behind the scenes to evaluate your brand. Is there a commonly held belief about the buying journey that might sound right, but that you're finding is doing companies a disservice?
Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of those. I love these. The first one is, and I call it the blank slate fallacy, is what I was just talking about a minute ago. Your buyers are really experienced in your category, unless your category is brand new. But like for as long as the category you're in has been around, people have been evaluating that. Now, if you've had a really hard time getting adoption of anybody in that category, maybe a lot of your buyers are still pretty naive. But for the most part, your buyers already know you and they're already experienced in your category. And one of the things that I've been fond of saying lately, just because it's fun, is that, your website is losing traffic, but it's not because of ChatGPT. It's because what's on your website is boring and it's not suited for the kind of people who are the decision makers for buying your stuff. It's maybe suited for who they were 10 years ago. But your content is probably all about how great you are and how you're number one. And your buyers have evaluated you 6, 7, 8 times already, and they know whether they think you're number one. They're not going to take your word for it. So that's one, that we have content and this idea in our head of our buyers as blank slates, as people who are starting fresh with no biases or preferences every time they go out to buy something. That is so far from the truth. It's ridiculous. So that's one. Another one, and this maybe even is more fundamental, so I'm just writing something on this. Virtually all of our goals in marketing are based on our potential buyers doing things that we would never do ourselves. So the most obvious thing is filling in a form on a website to get a white paper or piece of content. Like, your audience, Natalie, when was the last time anybody in this audience has filled in a form to get a white paper? If you exist in an established category, something that's been around 10, 12, 20, 30 years, your buyers know you and your competitors well. And if you have 20 vendors in your space, you still have to compete to get onto shortlists. If you've got 4 or 5, there's almost no chance you're not going to be on the short list because almost everybody's required to evaluate that many vendors, right? But your buyers have been evaluating you and your competitors for as long as your category has been around. So one of the things that I think everybody needs to understand is your buyers aren't using Google and ChatGPT to find out whether you exist in most cases. They already know that, and that's why LLM use is more toward the middle than the beginning, because what they're doing in the middle is they're saying, all right, so we know that these are the 4 or 5 vendors we're going to evaluate. I know which one I like, but I also have 5 other people I've got to convince and 4 other people I'm going to inform. And so ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, can you put together a table that compares these vendors across these 5 things? And by the way, here's what I want that table to say. This is a part of the way everybody uses LLMs that I think we need to understand a little better. We don't ask them a question in a topic that we're interested in and then just say, okay, well, there's the answer. That's all I need to know.
You talked about how self-promotion doesn't work. And I think that ungating content can feel scary, but I think what we've seen when we've done it for ourselves, for clients, it doesn't negatively impact the results, right? If someone likes your content, is in market, or wants to further engage with your company, they will do that, right? They can fill out the contact form, they can, whatever other ways to reach out, they'll find a way to do that. So I know it can feel scary, but it actually, to me, is almost kind of back to the original intent of inbound marketing, right? It wasn't put out content and kind of have forms everywhere. It was, if you put the right
Yeah.
information and it reaches the right buyers, people will self-select in and kind of come into your fold at the right time.
Yeah, I think, we have to get away from the industrialized production of contact names, which is what inbound marketing became, and shift back toward what, as you're saying, it really started off being, which is how do we help buyers develop a preference for our brand and our solution? That's what it's there for. But we got lost, and it really became a machine for producing contact names that we could pass on to BDRs and sales reps. And so I think that's the mission scope or mission creep or whatever that's called. It just it got way out of hand, and I think we have to shift away from that fast, because your buyers don't care about your self promotion. They don't want to fill out forms. ChatGPT can't fill out the forms, so you need to do something else.
Next, we hear from Kristina McMillan, sharing a brilliant tactical example of how to use AI to do the heavy lifting for your prospects and completely bypass traditional cold outreach.
Right now, everyone's in a transition where they're learning how to leverage AI, and a lot of the conversation is around how to leverage agents, which to me are things that are more department and organizational level. There's still a lot folks can do on the individual level to level up their own game, to level up their team's game, et cetera. And so I'll give an example first on maybe the individual level. So obviously in sales, we're seeing things like using AI for meeting prep. It's like, take a look at everything I've done and give me a quick summary so that I'm knowledgeable when I go in, as if I had been talking to only this account. I'm really knowledgeable about what's happening. Help me do things like prepare for and follow up so that I, as a rep, have really, really good hygiene. Those are some like very basic execution things. On the marketing side, of course, we do things like content generation. In the research that we've done on go-to-market AI adoption, marketers have been the fastest and most furious adopters of AI. And it's because one of the biggest things that marketing has to do, which is pump out content, was really well aligned to what AI did right out of the gate. It might not have been the best writer, but it sure as heck got you to that first draft faster, which then allows you to edit faster, which then allowed you to get stuff out the door faster. And so I think anything that can be done on that individual level is something that everybody should be looking at. What can I do? What are the repetitive tasks that I'm trying to do that can be done bigger, faster, stronger, smarter with AI? So another example that I really like is one of our portfolio companies took that to what I would say is almost like a really cool extreme. They were trying to reach out to CEOs in their prospect base, and they were like, we're just not getting any response. And so they said, well, what if we just tried to offer a ton of value? Sort of a little bit account-based 101, but what if we could create custom market research reports for their business on the challenges facing their industry and just some ideas related to what we do on how their particular business could navigate those. Incredibly valuable, almost a consulting like deliverable. But I'm sure everyone listening would be like, oh, that must take a lot of time and effort. They used AI to do it, and they could create 20 to 30 page market research reports in minutes using deep research, the earliest iteration of deep research in ChatGPT. Then they would package those, and they would, instead of having it sent from a rep, they would have it sent from their CEO to the other CEO. And they would use that to just get that first conversation. It was wildly successful. And they credit their success to this micro segmentation. It was one report for each account. And normally we might, if pre-AI, we'd never be able to create that type of content with that depth of richness and doing all of that type of research. It's people pay thousands of dollars for market research reports like that. But now we can offer that value directly ourselves. Now, theoretically, the prospect could go and do that themselves. but they don't have time. And so what I find really, really interesting is we can now delight them by doing their work for them as a value add in our go-to-market motion. And that's just been so promising. So on that individual level, there's still a ton of value. As we move up into the more department and or team and department level, let's say, we're seeing things in like helping workflows of the team move faster. It doesn't mean the entire thing is agentic and autonomous, but things like, again, I'll use content as an example. If we are trying to support a meaningful social media presence, we've got a lot of assets we have to create. And we could use, ChatGPT and do that ourselves, but now we're seeing things like Canva, who is helping you take one campaign and create many different formats of assets that might support. It could be a month's worth of content in a matter of a couple of hours. It's simply so powerful that it's just, you can't ignore what it could do for you and your team. And so as we continue to go up beyond just individual and team level, those are very focused on productivity, like how do we do more in less time, and how do we create those outputs. As we continue to move up the scale of use cases, we're starting to look at things like how do we improve the quality of what we're doing. So some of those later adoption use cases look at things like how can we use AI to analyze the behaviors that we've been doing and make better decisions. How can we go back and look at past deals to identify signals that we weren't aware of that are indications of good deals that will eventually close? So those are just some examples of the cool things that I'm seeing people do. I mean, so there's a lot of concern that productivity improvements, it's like all this magical time saved is the goal of AI. But then what are people doing with that time saved? And what I think is really, really interesting is to answer your question specifically, at some point, everyone in our organization needs to have basic AI knowledge. I equate it to, when I was in school, it was back when they taught us how to type, right? And everyone had to learn that basic fundamental skills of business. AI is going to be one of those on the individual level. You will need to figure out how to apply it to your individual role to make you better in that individual role. That said, when we're applying it to roles that duplicate in organizations like a sales team, it doesn't mean that I want each person to repeat those things individually. Can we put some of that stuff behind the scenes? So we have one organization that presented at our Go-to-Market AI Summit. And what was really cool is they had hundreds of sales reps, and they said, we're going to set out to save the sales reps 10 hours per rep per week. So could we do lots of little AI, efficiency projects to add up to 10 hours per rep per week? And of course, they want their reps to be able to, use AI and all that, but they just said, let's just take that off the table for right now. Could we create the space for them completely behind the scenes? So things like before, they would have to go in and click in 5 different places to look at the account history and prepare for a meeting. Could we actually look at their calendar, see what meetings are on their calendar, and then have AI automatically pull synopses and email them to them in the morning so that all the rep has to do is open their email? And they did things like this that delighted their reps. Like they said it was astonishing. Like we thought for sure the reps would be like, I wanted somewhere in Salesforce, but their reps were not even using some of the platforms that they had used as their foundational systems because they could just go to their email and get what they needed. That then allowed them the space in the organization to try more things. And I think last I checked, they were up to like 8.7 hours on average per rep per week with those types of things. So yes, the entire workforce will need to step up. But what we don't need to do is have everybody figuring out how to set up their own agents, how to create their own custom GPTs, how to get perfect at prompting just yet. There's a lot of improvement we can make for them and then scale behind the scenes.
Next in our lineup is RevOps expert Jacki Leahy, who explains why generic AI personalization is dead and how go-to-market teams must raise the bar to use AI for building true, visceral empathy.
My view on all the AI, it's not to replace SDRs or even like enhance or efficient. It's really not even about efficiency. It's about the bar has been raised, right? There's AI slop. So really And it's so easy to be like, hi, reference your last job, reference blah, blah, blah. Right? It's almost too easy. Like a year and a half ago, that would have been like, wow, I can't believe you mentioned a customer in a case study and the specific value we've got. Like that would have done numbers 18 months ago. But now it's just like, yeah, so I have 100 emails telling me something specific that I know that they got just because of right. So it's really on us, the go-to-market practitioners, to, okay, the bar has been raised, but our creativity and resourcefulness also needs to be raised. So like using that as momentum to really supercharge our elbow grease. So for example, this is a company that acquires like mom and pop HVAC companies. I'm sure like people are kind of knowing like the baby boomers are retiring and their children don't necessarily want to take over the business. So there's this huge, what do I do with this sustainable business that's not huge, right? And but a lot of people have caught on to that. So now these mom and pop business owners, like 2 years ago, would have been like, wow, this person wants to potentially buy my business. That's an interesting, but now they're getting emails all the time. But what if you could use AI agents to go run down creative questions like, how many children does this person have? Like, what ages are they? Can we find their professions on LinkedIn? Does it look like there's a real gap in legacy here to talk to? Even tracking down like what businesses are around you in Google Maps. All of these things that it's like, if the prospect really thinks about it, it's like, oh yeah, I guess I can see how they triangulated that. But it's about being resourceful and bringing it to the next level that creates value. Like no matter what, after someone reads my email, I want them to be like, I never thought about it like that. So that's really that's the task at hand.
Up next is GTM leader Sajag Chikarsal breaking down how to avoid accidental AI adoption by creating custom prompt libraries to drive highly targeted account-based marketing. I'm curious if there's anything that you've created for yourself, whether for in a personal or professional use, like custom GPT, kind of anything in your personal prompt library that you'd want to share.
Well, yeah, there are quite a few. I won't bore you with all the details, but I'll probably share one in a more corporate setting. So in my most recent company, I was at the VP marketing Salona or the CMO of Salona, the company in the private 5G space. The media team used to report into us, and what we did was I actually ended up creating a prompt. We wanted to target all the Fortune 500 companies, specifically in the manufacturing, logistic, warehouse, oil and gas, refinery space. And if you really want to do ABM, and we all know that you need to personalize your ABM outreach as well. And it's very difficult to find insights, right? So you want to find insights about the company. You want to know how well they are, what problems they are facing. You also want to find insights about what personas you want to reach out to and what these personas care about, which events they go to. So I ended up creating a custom GPT. And that GPT was, most of these Fortune 500 companies are public, let's say 70 to 80% of them. And I said, it was probably a 2-page prompt, and I kept refining it to the point that it just started yielding the results that I wanted to be. But it actually ran insights on at least the last 3 earnings report. And within the earnings report, it scanned everything. Like, what were the pain points highlighted? Is the company profitable? Have they got new funding? Or do they have new funding for a new project that is coming up? Is the stock price going up or down? Are there any specific personas named in the earnings report? Are there any competitors, or are there any partners that are named in those earnings report? And the output that I asked it to generate was, what are the pain points that company is going through? What are the tailwinds for the company? What are the headwinds for this company? Who are the key personas that are named? Search these key personas online and tell me which events are they going to go to. And then I asked for a very specific output. Now use all that summary that you've created, ChatGPT, of this company from their earnings report and tell them and probably create a quick summary of how Salona can help them with their enterprise connectivity. So it gave me a quick summary, and then I said, use the summary to even create a cold outreach to any executive within the company. So it took me some time to create that chat GPT, but or a custom GPT. But when we ran it across 5, 10, 20 different companies, it just gave us a very detailed description of the company, the personas, the partners, the competitors, and it equipped the BDRs. Generally, they would have to work with their sales rep, and they have to spend probably a couple of days to get to a point on which persona within that company do they want to reach out to. Now, with that information, all that research work has been reduced to, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes. They've got everything, and then they can just prioritize and strategize like, okay, this is what I've got to know. Who do you think that I should reach out to? Is it multiple people or one person, right? So that was a very good example. There are a couple of other GPTs that I've created for myself. For example, if I'm talking to a bunch of companies, I've also created like, okay, tell me more about the company, their GTM, their personas, like the product solutions. What is the market? What is their TAM? What is their SAM, right? And how do I need to, talk to this company if I'm talking to them about their pain points? So 3 GPTs that I think every company that should create is one for their ABM personalization or personalization at scale, running insights on their first party data, which is their product usage data or their CRM data. And then the third one would be just training a GPT or a gem on your brand and tone that can really help you fast pace, whatever outreach you want to do to their customers. I've created a bunch of others, and maybe that's a conversation for a separate time. I've even created some AI agents, and I'm still on that journey. I'm trying to learn more and how to connect more and more sources to create more agents.
Finally, we wrap up with Yossi Carmon, who discusses the massive explosion of AI content slop and explains why returning to authentic, old-school marketing tactics is the ultimate way to cut through the digital noise.
So, in my opinion, the most important point today in go-to-marketing is authenticity. Sorry, that's the main part. With AI today, with everyone being able to generate content, if it's video, if it's even messaging, whatever you have, you can do it with AI and social media and everywhere. It's like there's almost 1000% growth with content all over social media because of AI. Because everyone can now write amazingly, very storytelling, very appealing, but people are like sick of it already. They want something very authentic, very true. And I think with your go-to marketing, in my opinion, is the market will be in the next 5 years. It will be more word of mouth, people recommending to their friends, more on that area. I think people want to see in their eyes or hear with their ears, see that this is the actual. It's actual. It's like live. It's not not a video or ad. An experience. People want to experience that themselves. It's not enough to. There's a lot of fake out, like crazy fake. And I think that is anyone that plan with go to marketing, emails, ads, the efficiency of those drop down to almost zero, all of them. Google ads not working anymore at all, completely. Like it's and AI is like everyone's searching it with AI. So you need to think out of the box.
Yeah.
I would go, by the way, I would go as a marketing person. I would go to the old ways. Like you are my age, on average. Okay, I'm close enough. And when we were in like 30 years ago, we sent envelopes with letters to people to their inbox, mail inbox. That was an amazing way to reach out to business partners, to CEOs, to executives. It was easier. with a gift. I think the go-to-market, the next go-to-market would be back to that area.
That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.